What if the stories you love most were actually written by an algorithm? In fact, participants couldn't always tell the difference and often preferred the but was in two places. By the end of this video, you'll understand why AI stories are outperforming human ones and what it means for the future of writing. In one experiment, over 2,500 participants read short stories, some written by human authors and others created by ChatGPT. The results were surprising. AI-generated stories scored higher in both quality and engagement. In some cases, when readers believed they were reading a story written by a person, their ratings went even higher. This suggests that the perception of authorship plays a big role in how people judge a story's value. But why would someone prefer an AI-written story over one from a human writer? Researchers found that people often assume human writers bring unique emotional depth and life experiences to their work qualities they don't think machines can replicate. However, this assumption may be outdated. This shift in preference raises important questions about the future of storytelling. As AI continues to improve, it might challenge traditional notions of creativity and authorship. Could we see a world where AI becomes the go-to tool for writers or even replaces them entirely? Involving more than 2,500 participants across 3 experiments, researchers tested how people perceive and rate stories created by both human authors and AI tools like ChatGPT. Some of the stories were even mislabeled to see if participants could tell the difference and whether they cared. The results were surprising. AI-generated stories received higher ratings for quality and engagement compared to those written by humans. This suggests that people might not only be unable to distinguish between human and AI writing, but also tend to favor the latter without realizing it. But here's the twist. When people think they're reading a story by a human, they rate it higher, even if it was written by an AI. That raises a big question. Why would readers rate AI stories higher if they don't even know they're reading them? The goal was to compare how participants rated them in terms of quality, engagement, and enjoyment. Participants rated the stories without knowing which was written by a human or an AI. In some cases, authorship labels were accurate. In others, they were reversed. This helped researchers see how beliefs about the source influence perceptions. Some found AI-generated stories more engaging and of higher quality than human-written ones. When participants believed a story was written by a human, even if it was actually generated by AI, ratings improved. A key finding is that people often underestimate AI's creative potential. Many assume humans bring unique emotional depth and life experience, which machines lack. Researchers noted a bias toward human authorship, suggesting people may overvalue human involvement while undervaluing AI capabilities. Human-written and AI-generated versions were matched in length, structure, and flow. Results indicate that while people still associate creativity with humans, they may not distinguish between human and AI writing effectively, and sometimes prefer AI stories when they believe them to be human-made. As AI improves, it challenges assumptions about what makes writing uniquely human. The findings could impact publishing, education, and entertainment, where content creation is central. This suggests that belief in human authorship significantly influences how people value a story. Even though AI stories were objectively better, the human touch still held weight. Readers assumed human-written stories were more emotionally rich or meaningful traits, typically associated with humans, not AI. This perception gap might explain why AI stories scored well, even when unrecognized as such. In one stage, 168 adults read 6 stories, half human-written, half generated by ChatGPT on equivalent themes. Some were told accurate authorship, others saw reversed labels. AI-generated stories received significantly higher scores in quality and engagement than human-written ones. For example, when participants believed a story was written by a human, they rated it even more highly than when they knew it was AI-generated. This highlights how perception affects evaluation. People value content more if they think it came from a human creator, regardless of actual quality. This makes us undervalue what AI is capable of today. In one experiment, researchers asked humans to write short stories and used GPT-4 to generate matching versions, each about 1,000 words. Participants rated each without knowing which was human or AI-generated. Even when told a story was AI-written, participants still gave it high scores for quality and engagement. This suggests people struggle to distinguish between the two and may rely more on preconceptions than actual content. If people already rate AI stories higher simply because they think they're human-made, this could shift how we value writers and their work. As AI advances, the line between human and machine creativity may blur further, raising questions about authorship, originality, and technology's role in creative fields. This signals growing acceptance of AI content and a need for creators to adapt to this changing landscape. But this assumption might be misleading. Readers often underestimate how capable AI has become in crafting compelling narratives. Many participants couldn't tell the difference between stories written by humans and those generated by AI. They even preferred the AI. Why would that happen? Could it be that people are more drawn to the idea of a human author than to the actual quality of the story? This bias might stem from long-held beliefs about what makes writing real or authentic. But as AI continues to improve, those assumptions may need rethinking. If readers can't always tell the difference and sometimes prefer AI stories, what does that mean for writers and developers alike? What happens when the line between human and machine creativity starts to blur? In the first stage, 162 adults read one of 6 stories, half written by human authors and half generated by ChatGPT, all on equivalent themes. In some tests, the authorship presented to participants was accurate, in others it was intentionally reversed. Dina Skolnick-Weisberg, Associate Professor in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences at Villanova University and senior author of the study, explained that these findings highlight a positive bias toward human authorship. People assume that creative writing requires qualities that are uniquely human, like emotional understanding and life experiences, she said. The researchers asked GPT-4 to create versions of human-written stories, forming pairs of content, one written by a person and one by AA, all around 1,000 words long, about 5 minutes of reading time. The findings revealed that readers not only struggled to distinguish between the two, but also showed a clear preference for the AI-generated stories in some cases. This shift raises important questions about the future of storytelling and the role of both human and machine creativity. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it may challenge traditional notions of authorship and authenticity in literature. What happens when readers no longer rely on assumptions about who wrote a story, but instead focus solely on its content? How will this affect aspiring writers, publishers, and even the way stories are taught and appreciated? These findings challenge traditional views on authorship and creativity. Historically, writing has been linked to human emotion and imagination. For writers, this could shift how they approach their craft. As AI-generated content becomes more common in publishing, human authors might need to rethink their strategies, perhaps focusing on unique voices, deeper emotional resonance, or even collaborating with AI tools. The goal isn't replacement, but adaptation to a new creative landscape where machines can produce compelling narratives. If readers engage more with stories they believe were written by people, the challenge is making AI content feel more human. This requires refining algorithms not just in grammar and structure, but also in tone, pacing, and character development. The aim isn't perfect imitation, but supporting creative expression in new ways. What does this say about how we perceive human creativity versus machine-generated content? If people already favor AI stories without realizing it, what happens when they learn the truth? Some were correctly told who wrote them, others had reversed attribution. Dina Skolnick-Weisberg, Associate Professor at Villanova University and senior author, noted these results reveal a positive bias toward human authorship. People assume creative writing requires uniquely human qualities like emotional understanding, she said. Findings suggest audiences may not only struggle to distinguish between IA and human writing, but also prefer the former without realizing it. As tools like ChatGPT evolve, they become more capable of producing meaningful content. But concerns arise about originality, authorship, and the role of human creators in an increasingly automated world. Whether this trend continues or reverses remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, the line between human and machine creativity is becoming harder to draw. As IA continues to evolve, the line between machine-generated and human-written stories is blurring. Readers may soon be unable to tell the difference or may even prefer IA-generated content. This raises questions about the role of human authors in a world where machines can create compelling narratives. They couldn't always tell which was which, and when they thought a story was written by a person, it received even higher scores. This shows that people often overestimate the uniqueness of human creativity and underestimate what AI can do. Some were told the correct authorship, while others were misled about who had created the story. The results revealed that stories generated by AI received higher ratings in terms of quality and engagement compared to those written by humans. This trend suggests that the public's perception of AI is not keeping up with its capabilities. This assumption leads them to undervalue what AI can accomplish. But if readers are starting to favor AI stories, what does that mean for writers? Will human authors still be valued in the same way? As machines become better at storytelling, they might take on more roles in content creation. maybe even replacing some writers. Yet, there's something special about a human voice, a personal touch that I might never fully replicate. Could this shift in preference affect how we value writers and their work? If readers are increasingly unable to distinguish between human and AI-generated stories, and if they begin to prefer the latter, it could reshape the literary landscape. Publishers may favor AI for its efficiency, and audiences may gravitate toward content that feels more accessible or less emotionally taxing. However, there remains a place for human storytelling, especially in genres where personal experience and emotional depth are paramount. As AI continues to advance, the challenge will be maintaining the value of human creativity in an era where machines can mimic and even surpass some aspects of it. By the end of this video, you've seen how AI stories are outperforming human ones in key metrics like quality and engagement. As we move forward, the future of storytelling might not depend on whether a story was written by a human or an algorithm, but on how well it resonates with readers. It shows that when it comes to storytelling, what matters most isn't who wrote the story, but how compelling it is. Readers are more likely to be drawn in by a well-crafted narrative regardless of its origin. This could signal a shift in how we value writing, moving from a focus on the writer's identity to the impact of the work itself. The implications for writers and AI developers are significant. For human authors, this means competition is no longer just with other people, it's also with powerful new tools that can craft engaging stories quickly and efficiently. For AI creators, it shows there's potential not only in technical accuracy but also in emotional resonance and reader connection. But what does this mean for the future of storytelling? What if the next great novel was written by an algorithm? Stay tuned for our next video on the future of storytelling in the age of AI. If you enjoyed this insight, hit subscribe for more updates on AI and creativity. The themes of the stories were kept consistent to ensure a fair comparison. In some parts of the tests, the authorship information provided to participants was accurate. In others, it was deliberately swapped. The results show that AI-generated stories received higher ratings for quality and engagement compared to human-written ones. This suggests that people tend to give more credit to human-created content based on assumptions about creativity and emotional depth rather than the actual quality of the work. According to Diana Skolnick-Weisberg, an associate professor at Villanova University and senior author of the research, this highlights a positive bias toward human authorship. We assume that creative writing requires uniquely human qualities like emotional understanding and life experiences, she explained. Another version of the study, published in the scientific journal Judgment and Decision Making, involved more than 2,500 participants who were asked to rate stories written by humans versus those generated by ChatGPT. Researchers used stories written by humans and asked GPT-4 to generate corresponding versions, creating pairs of content composed of one story written by people and another generated by machines. This challenges the traditional view that human creativity is irreplaceable, and suggests that as AI continues to evolve, it may become a formidable force in the world of storytelling.